right, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to hello to all our YouTube viewers and participants. Welcome to StackLeague University Series, Bulacan State University Edition. I am King, and I will be your host for this event. All right, so I would like to remind everyone that before we begin with our session, that if you have any questions regarding StackLeague or regarding our session for today, you may type in your questions in our the comment section, and later on we will address them during the Q&A session. All right. So before we dive into today's session, we would like to give you an overview of Stack League, especially if it's your first time to join a Stack League event. So to help me with that, we have here Casey Kalunod, one of the growth associates, and she will be giving us the overview of Stack League. Take it away, Casey.
Thank you, King, and good morning to everyone. Welcome to Stack League's University Series. Again, I am Casey, and I will be giving you sharing with you a short overview of what Stack League is all about. So, first and foremost, what is Stack League? So, Stack League is the Philippines' largest online programming league, and it is our mission here to develop programming leaders that inspire the nation into coding. Now, the tournament is powered by StackTrek's fully automated talent analytics and assessment platform. Now, we are in our second competitive year, and Stack League wouldn't be possible without the support of our partners. So, we are very fortunate to be supported by the top companies in the industry. We have our silver sponsor, Coding Chiefs, and of course, our bronze sponsors, Microsoft, Dell Tech Systems, Apper.ph, Recruit Day, and Gcash. We also have our media partners, Spark Up, Apps Gadget, What's Up Pilipinas, Corner Magazine PH, Androidist, Megabytes, Backend News, Bluewing, and Manila Republic. The same goes for our community partners over here who help the league reach as many programmers in the country as possible. So here are our community partners. Now, this pioneering programmer league was launched last year, March 16, and we are now gathering over 10,000 tech talents across the country to test their leadership, perseverance, and coding skills with the promise of nationwide media recognition, lots of prizes, thousands of tech job opportunities, and access to invitation only events. And the league's year round cash prize pool is now at 10 million pesos. And this is for the whole or the duration of the whole competition. So, this is the pot where we get all our prizes for our challengers. Now, one of the highlights here in Stack League is the weekly stack race for both the individual and team categories. And each week, the top 10 challengers and the top 3 teams are announced all across Stack League social media platforms to recognize the challengers who stayed on top of the rankings. And apart from this, we also have the Stack League featured programmer and team campaign. So the weekly top 10 challengers and the top 3 teams are going to be featured on Stack League's website. And of course, this will be shared on our social media channels as well. Now, Stack League will also be hosting numerous tech and career sessions all throughout the year, and aside from this, we also have exclusive training available for ranking up to the next challenger levels. We also have mentorship sessions for our challengers, and all these events and training are for free. So we hope you guys can leverage on these opportunities. Now, we also have the Stack League Ambassador Program, and this is a year round initiative to reward Stack League challengers who go beyond the competition and inspire the nation into coding. And to tell you more about the Stack League Ambassador Program, here is a short clip for you. And there you have it. That's for the Stack League Ambassador Program. And congratulations to Darwin Pablo for being the Stack League Ambassador for March, winning the 3,000 pesos cash prize and a Stack League t shirt. Now, if you want to be the next Stack League Ambassador and win the cash prize and t shirt, the program is still open for April. And you can find the full mechanics at our website or go to bit.ly/ Stack League Ambassador 2022. Again, bit.ly/ Stack League Ambassador 2022. Now, for the competition itself, there are five supported programming languages in the league. We have JavaScript, Java, Python, C Sharp, and PHP. This is also how the ranking system works. So after signing up, you start at the bottom with 0 points, and all you need to do is solve as many challenges as you can and earn the corresponding points. So the more points you earn, the higher your ranking goes. And once you have accumulated enough points, you can now get to the next challenger levels. Where more opportunities are also unlocked for you to access. So again, there are three challenger levels here. We have the bronze level, silver, and gold levels. And the new thing for this year's challenger level is the prizes. So every time you or when you once you unlock bronze level, you will receive 100 pesos. Once you unlock the silver level, you will get another 100, and once you unlock the gold level, you will receive 300 pesos. So the total prize that you can get for unlocking the challenger levels would be 500 pesos. Now, there is also the Stack League Treasure Chest individual category, wherein the weekly top 10 challengers will receive 500 pesos each as a cash prize for ranking or for being in the top 10. And this is open for the whole competitive season. We also have the Stack League playoffs, and the Stack League playoffs is a single elimination tournament featuring all monthly qualifiers where all our weekly top 10 Stack League challengers will automatically be invited to the monthly qualifier rounds. You can read the mechanics at bit.ly/ Stack League Playoffs 2022. And to know more about this one, here is another short clip for you. And that is for the Stack League playoffs. So the playoffs second monthly qualifier round will be this Saturday, April 30 at 10 a.m. We will be broadcasting this at our YouTube channel. So if you want to go and support our challengers competing for the qualifier pool, you can watch them live. You can also view the rankings live at our website. And that's it for the overview of Stack League. And remember that as a year round tournament, Stack League is looking for the best challengers that can stay up in the ranks and become programming leaders for the long haul. So that's all on my end. Back to you, King.
Thank you so much, Casey, for giving us a short introduction of Stack League. And I know that a lot of the students are really excited for our session for today. So let's not delay this any further. Let me introduce to you our first speaker. He is a graduate from De La Salle University, Das Marinas, was a part of the Lasallian Computer Society from 2012 to 2014. He is also a part of the Microsoft Student Partner from 2015 to 2017, Information Technology Program Council from 2015 to 2016, and as a vice president, and also from 2016 to 2017, he became the president. And activities in the societies, Lasallian Computer Society from 2012 to 2014. Microsoft Student Partner, He became part of it, and he was the president at the Information Technology Program Council from 2016 to 2017. He was the president. He is also part of the Android Masters 2016 semifinals under games category. He was also the vice president and a leadership awardee from Gawad Agham 2016. Cavite Hackathon 2015 second runner-up under games category, spearheaded as project head Imagine Comp 2015 at DLSUD. He is also a volunteer as an organizer speaker with Microsoft Student Partners Philippines for 6 years already, and now thrives as an experiential lead for business decision makers, driving critical conversations with industry leaders through physical experiences and manage strategic partnership with key organizations. Everyone, let's give a warm welcome to Zildjian Dames. Good morning, Zildjian.
Good morning, King. Thank you for that very lengthy introduction. And for everyone, welcome to our virtual session. And I thank everyone for joining us for today as we tackle Cloud 101. And for those who are interested on getting onboarded and, of course, getting the knowledge to what it means to be a part of the cloud services. So let's get right into it. This is a view on a pre COVID scenario for some of us. And this tells us that not all companies were ready to adapt to digital transformation until COVID-19 hit us. Now we are years away, and digital transformation has been done in some cases in less than 2 months at this point. Jumping into the new normal where there are numerous of businesses, merchants, restaurants that has the limitation in terms of the numbers of capacity that they can accommodate, as well as the number of hours that they can operate. Most of us are doing work from home, and we have those companies that are fully working home that needs to be online and can still function by being able to access internal files securely while working remotely as well. And that led us into mobility. Similar to those that what happened also with other businesses, the transportation industry has limitations as well in terms of the number of people it can accommodate and so on. Clearly, these scenarios has shown us that this is going to be the new normal of work. So the question is, are we ready? In 2018, Gartner launched a survey for CEOs to identify their top priority in the businesses. And the slide that you are seeing right now here is a result. The respondents cited that technology enablement or IT related or basically just plain technology is now their top two priority. When asked to consider productivity or efficiency actions, CEOs were much more inclined to think that technology is a tool, and 47% of those respondents mentioned that technology has been one of their top of minds or top two ways to improve productivity. Now, this is a result of a new survey that was recently conducted with CEOs or the chief executive officers of every organization. Technology has been, again, their number one priority to ensure that they could overcome business challenges, still reach the market, can also make decision even much more faster than before, and of course, to reduce their cost by adapting digital transformation. So clearly, all of the leaders right now are all of their priorities is more on evolving. But if you would ask me, what is cloud computing? How does it differ? Let's get into this next slide. A big part of this journey is all about cloud computing. And cloud computing is technically the delivery of computing services, which includes servers, storage, databases, networking, software, analytics, and intelligence all over the internet. That's why we call it the cloud. All of these offer faster innovation, flexible resources, and economies of scale. Microsoft considers cloud computing to be something more, or it is something that is synergetic to the effect when you get on collective devices such as servers, personal computers, and of course, mobile devices. All of these use the network to pull the resources and work together. You can see that in the large data centers today, where servers work together seamlessly to absorb more traffic and respond dynamically when something breaks, all without requiring IT personnel to intervene. Now, of course, with the ease of access, security, scalability, and reliability, that comes from having all of these pieces work together, and it ends up being greater than the individual parts. In short, cloud computing is about having data centers, devices, and application working together better than they had before. It uses the power of the internet to connect endpoints and devices, resulting in a seamless user experience at the very cost-effective process. To put it in another way, cloud computing is a way to rent computing power and storage from someone else's data center. You can treat cloud resources like you would in resources on your own data center, and of course, when you're done, you give them back. You're only billed for what you use. Now, to give you an idea, this is the traditional setup prior to the cloud journey. And I know for a fact that on your case as student, some of you are maybe well aware of this scenario. Hardware has to be bought, set up, and secured and maintained. It really takes up space. It has to be secured. It has to be maintained, and of course, most important to that is that it has to be in a desired environment where it could perform properly. And to some extent, it periodically goes down and it requires patching. And by virtue of being on premise, it is vulnerable to disasters such as power outages, floods, and of course, lightnings. In the cloud right now, all of those costs and headache would become Microsoft's to deal with, or to any cloud solution provider that are out there. And as you move further with the cloud, you will realize that there are a lot of savings and effort to be part with the organization. So, what are the triggers and benefits of cloud computing? So, technically, you would ask the question why, as an IT decision maker. Well, for our IT decision makers in the organization right now, the reasons why they are migrating to cloud. So currently, businesses are maintaining a physical data center with hardware and software that needs to be renewed and refreshed. This entails longer time to identify vendors, sizing, costing, and bidding process with cloud, that you need not to worry on these as you have your virtual machines in place and in minutes, getting solutions to market faster than the usual. Nowadays, businesses are looking towards reducing costs that in some case scenarios, there are hardwares that are either idle or has not been used, but it is sitting there in the data center, of course. One that is contributing to the cost of the organization, or either way, you need to renew or replace that are outdated, between the hardwares and the software as well. And of course, you do have to ensure the data are secure so that purchasing a firewall and all other cybersecurity solutions are there in the scenarios that are the companies need more immediately to adapt to with the changes that has been happening with the environment. With migrating to the cloud, companies can already see the value of scaling in no time with the model of pay as you go, or pay for only the usage that you use, from capex to opex, and making it more agile for the IT team so that they could focus more on the innovation that is aligned to the vision of their organization. So In this, we focus more on the several core benefits on moving to the cloud with economic benefits, right? So, financial and, of course, IT benefits for transformational uses. Economic benefits are the principles that shift when you go from an on prem architecture to a cloud based architecture. So moving from on-prem to Azure provides the ability to shift from elastic to static to optimize your capacity and of course to reduce the risk that is inherited in trying new architecture and services. So for financial benefits for the organization, there are structural financial changes that occur when shifting to the cloud. We will discuss this in more in depth later in the presentation, but at its core, we're able to reduce our fixed costs and have a more dynamic and appropriate financial environment, of course. And of course, finally, with the IT business transformation, it is tied strongly to agility and, of course, personal productivity. Everyone, as a developer, that are impacted when a consumer migrates to the cloud. Now, to give you an idea about the cloud deployment models, here's a quick visualization, and there are a lot. There are different types of cloud deployment models. So on the leftmost is a on-premise setup that could potentially be your private cloud. So the scenarios that we see in the industry where the IT team most of the time manages it. So for infrastructure as a service or IaaS, you are the one who's responsible for managing the operating system, the data, and the application. Here, it helps you extend resources rapidly to meet the spikes required for the user application. So it is commonly used in the following scenarios where you're trying to migrate your workloads, where you're moving towards existing applications to the cloud. Second is for test and development, where you quickly set up and dismantle test and development environment. So infrastructure as a service makes scaling development and testing environment fast and economical. So for storage, backup and recovery as well, simplifying the planning and management of the backup and recovery. For website hosting, of course, it's less expensive than the traditional web hosting. In terms of high performance computing, clusters of computers that help solve complex problem involving millions of variables or calculation. In terms of big data analysis for massive data sets that require a huge amount of processing power. Now, let's take a look at platform as a service, of wherein there's less user management. The operating systems are managed by the cloud providers such as Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and so on, while the user is responsible for the application and the data that they run and store. So, platform as a service offers all the functionality that you need to support the entire life cycle of the web application. So that includes building, testing the application, deploying the source code, managing and updating within the same integrated environment. Usually, we use this on the following scenarios, such as development framework, where a framework for creating and customizing cloud-based application, analytics or business intelligence, where we try to find insights and patterns and predict outcomes to improve business decision. And last but not the least, we do have software as a service, where it requires the least amount of management. So technically, the cloud provider is the one who's responsible for managing everything as a whole, and the end user just uses the software. So it's called as serverless computing. You simply deploy the code with the serverless platform and it runs at a high availability. So, dynamically speaking, it scales up and down to meet the demands of each workload within seconds. And also, it's a pay per execution model that charges sub second billing only for the time and resources required to execute the code. Now, to better understand the different models and its users, here's a view of which personas where the cloud model would benefit mostly. So, starting it off from the orange cloud, you will see that these are the end users that we have in a company, that users are accessing HR tools, either sending emails, working on billings and billing report, CRM, and so on. On the blue cloud, the users are typically the data scientists, or the data analyst that gathers information to analyze the results of the past and predicting the future to make sure that the business leaders can make a sounding decision or appropriate decision to the changing environment. And last but not the least, we do have the green cloud, where users, mostly the IT team, who manages the infrastructure, networking, storage, and security to ensure that everything is running well. But of course, I won't be expecting for you guys to take on this on a technical level, but to put everything on a lighter note, imagine the means that you are traveling. So let's say, for example, if you are going by bus, you are availing the service, meaning to say you are going from one point to another, but you are sharing it with the public, with other folks as well. There are other users or other organizations that you are sharing the service with. Now, when we go by private, or if you get on your own car, you are owning the service as it is, and you have the flexibility and the decision to do whatever it is that you'll be needing with the cloud service program. And last but not the least, we do have hybrid, where you do not own, when you technically do not own the service, and yet you still can avail the services. Now, just to expound on that, public clouds are the most common type of cloud computing deployment. The cloud resources like servers and storage are owned and operated by a third party cloud service provider and delivered over the internet. So, with the public cloud, all hardware, software, and other supporting infrastructure are owned and managed by the cloud provider. Microsoft Azure is an example of a public cloud. So, in a public cloud, you share the same hardware, storage, and network devices with other organizations or cloud tenants, and yet you access the services and manage your account using a web browser. So, public cloud deployments are frequently used to provide web based email, online office applications, storage, and of course, testing and development environments. Jumping into the private cloud, a private cloud mostly consists of cloud computing resources that are used exclusively by one of the businesses or any of the organizations. So technically, the private cloud can be physically located at your organization's on-site data center, or it can be stored by a third-party service provider or an external company. But in a private cloud, the services and infrastructure are always maintained on a private network. And of course, the hardware and the software are dedicated only to your organization. So in this way, a private cloud can make it easier for a company to customize its resources to meet the specific IT needs. So private clouds are oftenly used by government agencies, financial institutions, and any other mid to large size organizations with business critical operations seeking enhanced control over their environments. So technically, those that are handling personal informations and so on. With the hybrid cloud is a type of cloud computing that combines both the on-premise infrastructure and, of course, of a private cloud or a public cloud. That depends. So a hybrid cloud allows data and applications to move between two environments. Many organizations nowadays choose the hybrid cloud approach due to the business imperatives such as meeting regulatory and data sovereignty requirements, taking full advantage of on-premise technology investment, or addressing low latency issues. Right now, the hybrid cloud is evolving to include edge workloads as well. By edge computing, it brings the computing power of the cloud to IoT devices or Internet of Things devices, closer to where the data resides. By moving workloads to the edge, device spends less time communicating with the cloud, reducing the latency, and of course, they're even able to operate reliably in extended offline periods. Now, just to give you a summary, with our deployment model, it's always on a need basis. It would depend on the organization on what they'll be needing. So we would always we would always have the freedom to choose between what deployment model we would be able to use. But to give you an idea about Azure, I'm more than happy to say that Microsoft Azure has 66 regions globally. We have the most number of region amongst all of the cloud providers that can support your requirement because, of course, the ultimate goal here is to meet where you are. Now, in terms of security, and this is where all of the questions would be coming in, as I know that everyone's well concerned about the security of their data or with their solutions that are hosted with third party agencies. Microsoft has invested $1 billion on cybersecurity with 3,500 security professionals to ensure and guarantee that we are protecting your cloud environment. In hybrid, we have the largest geographical footprint for any cloud provider with more than 60 Azure regions. And of course, in terms of being compliant, Azure has more than 90 compliance certifications in total globally. And here, you'll see all of those compliance certifications that I have been talking about as a reference to the 88 certifications or compliance offering as of mid November 2020. Now, there are so many components that to the intelligent security graph, but some of the key teams working hard with it is that something that you may have heard of. So first off, is we do have the Cyber Defense Operations Center. So the Microsoft Cyber Defense Operations Center is a 24/7 cybersecurity and defense facility that technically unites all of our security experts and our data scientists in a centralized location. So advanced software tools and real-time analytics to help us protect, detect, and respond to threats to Microsoft's cloud infrastructure. Of course, as well as our products and devices, and of course, our internal resources as well. So we do have the Digital Crimes Unit, a team of legal and technical experts who work with law enforcement agencies, including Europol, the FBI, Interpol Academia, global government agencies, and of course, our commercial customers as well. We do have cyber hunting teams. These are Microsoft's blue teams that are constantly hunting for adversaries on our enterprise and cloud services environments. Um, we do have our malware protection center. So this is our team for the world's largest antivirus and anti-malware service who is committed on helping our community to keep their computer secure and quickly respond to malware outbreaks by continuously gathering and analyzing data and working with organizations inside and outside of Microsoft. We do have as well the Security Response Center that identifies, monitors, and responds to and resolves security incidents and vulnerabilities in Microsoft software services and, of course, devices. It's a lead cross-company coordinated with security in response for the highest severity of events and partners with external organization for coordinated cross-company and government response. Now, that says a lot on how Microsoft is invested in terms of securing your data online. And all of these learnings from these teams working together teaches us how to make our services more secure as well to better protect our customers in real time. Now, the assets that you have to protect are broken down into four main categories at the bottom of the slide. So we do have identities, which is a critical element to security as well as assurance that are based on authentication and authorization provided by identity systems. So we do have apps and data, so the stores of the business value whose confidentiality, integrity, and availability must be protected as well. Infrastructure, a critical security dependency for most apps and data to get at them. And last but not the least, we do have the devices, the front line of the security battle that collectively protects access to all of your assets. Now, with the several capabilities that already have integrated threat intelligence turned out by default protecting our customers against threats, we do have Smart Screen that is built into Edge and Internet Explorer to provide cloud-powered protection against attack, um, downloaded applications, and malware hosted on legitimate websites. In terms of Windows updates, of course, updates on Windows are also on top of mind to remove malware threats from PCs each month. We do have Active Protection Service or MAPS, which are cloud powered malware detection services that are built on top of Windows Defender that significantly increases the detection of advanced malware. Now, additionally, um, okay. Additionally, for those who are wondering what a data center is, specifically, an Azure data center is a unique physical building that contains thousands and thousands of physical servers that has its own unit for power, for cooling, and networking infrastructure. So these are data centers that are located all over the world. As of November 2020, there are over 160 plus Azure data centers worldwide. And it's these data centers that are building the blocks of global Azure infrastructure. Now, to put it simply, an Azure region is a set of data centers that are connected through a dedicated low latency network. If you ask how many data centers does a region contain, well, we do not have a fixed number as it varies per region. But a region could be made up of just one or multiple data centers as well. The point is, a region is a group of one or more data centers. As of, but yeah, in a region, you can have as much as you want, and you can also deploy across multiple regions to deliver cross region resiliency. Now, in terms of availability zones, it is a unique physical location within Azure region. So each availability zone is made up of one or more data centers with independent power and cooling and networking. Of course, not all regions will have availability zones as well. Regions that support availability zones have a minimum of three separate zones to ensure resiliency. If one of the availability zone has gone down for some reason, we still have our applications and data available from the rest of the world with two availability zones. There is a physical separation between each availability zone, and it is our separation that protects our application and data from data center failures. With availability zones, we can ensure that there's a 99% virtual machine uptime standard league application. So, some Azure services take further advantage of paired regions to ensure business continuity and to protect against data loss. Now, Azure provides several storage solutions that usually take advantage of paired regions to ensure data availability. Now, for example, we do have Azure Geo-redundant storage that replicates all data to a secondary region automatically, ensuring that the data is durable even in the event that the primary region is not recoverable. Note that not all Azure services automatically replicate data, nor do all services automatically fall back from a failed region to its in pair. So, in such cases, recovery and replication must be configured by the organization. Now, you might ask this: can I select my regional in pairs? So the answer is no. Some Azure services rely on regional pairs such as Azure Redundant Storage, and these services does not allow you to create new regional pairings. Similarly, because Azure controls planned maintenance and recovery prioritization for regional pairs, and you can define your own regional pairs to take advantage of these services. However, you can create your own disaster recovery solution by building services in any number of the regions and leveraging Azure services to pair them. Now, with this, resiliency has been a system ability to recover from failures and continue to function. But it's not only about avoiding failures, but also involves responding to failures in a way that minimizes the downtime or the data loss. Because, of course, failures can occur at various levels. It's very, very important for everyone to have protection for all types based on your service availability requirements. Resilience in Azure supports and advances capabilities that respond to outages and in real time to ensure continuous service and data protection. Also, it's also an assurance for mission critical application that requires near zero downtime and high customer confidence. Now, with Azure, it includes our built-in resiliency services that you can leverage on and manage based on the requirements that you'll be needing. So whether it's a simple hardware node failure or a rack level failure, a data center outage, or even a large scale regional outage, Azure will provide solutions that improve resiliency. For example, availability sets ensure the virtual machine deployed on Azure are distributed across multiple isolated hardware nodes in a cluster. Availability zones protect customers, application, and data from data center failures across the multiple physical locations within the regions. And with that, regions and availability zones are central to your application with the design to resiliency strategy that are discussed in greater detail later. Now, let's talk about the economics of the cloud. How does any businesses out there value from it? One thing to keep in mind that certain businesses value cloud adoption and they view it from different perspective with respect to the technical evolution and the benefit as well as financial. But often not, the value of cloud extends beyond even just the cost. And that's the reason why most of the organizations are shifting into it right now. Some of these aspects are hard to quantify or measure, meaning to say it's hard to keep track of their KPI around the potential scalability or flexibility aspects of the cloud. But there are absolutely benefits that will make organizations realize over time. That on this particular slide, we wanted to share a couple of quotes from the customer that represents some of the less quantifiable benefits. So these they are absolutely the benefits of moving workloads to cloud, but they are harder to quantify and they may be outside of the scope as well, either on a business case or a financial plan. But if we look at the first example, it really talks on the point of high availability and increased security. For example, when you move a workload to the cloud, you get these additional security aspects as well, like multi-factor authentication and some other tools and resources that are inherent in the cloud infrastructure that are challenging and costly to deploy on premise. The second quote addresses flexibility or even speed actually to the market, and that's kind of like hard to quantify at this point, but how you may have expediency or flexibility of deploying a workload on premise versus a cloud and the timelines attached to that. So technically, these are concepts that are great to keep in mind as they can further fortify the overall business case, even if they are hard to build KPI around or targets. So let's try to tap into the core benefits of cloud migration and how your organization will be consuming cloud, which is different than on-premises data centers. When we think about the benefits, there are two larger categories that we really can take into consideration. Um, One is the technical benefits, and then we separate it from that. But of course, we are still reliant upon the technical benefits, which are also the financial benefits. Starting with the technical benefits, when you start looking at deploying workloads to the cloud, there's no aspect or abilities that comes into play that are more than limiting to be on premise, but more accessible in the cloud. One of them being scalability at this point. The ability to scale out your resources depending on the usage, utilization, and the demand. Second to that is availability, of course. On premise, it's more costly to build highly available infrastructure. It's less costly to architect highly available infrastructure on the cloud. Third is security and compliance. Within the cloud, we're always adding to our security, and of course, infrastructure and tool sets to keep you on par with what's transpiring with respect to security threats on the global networks. Fourth is the capacity optimization, meaning to say that you are only paying for the resources that you are actually utilizing over time. So your capacity to fluctuate depending on the particular demands. And during those load times within the business cycle, you can actually scale back the resources of your overall capability. And of course, scale up depending on the need as well. The core concept to keep in mind is that the elasticity as well as on-demand resources is a huge paradigm shift with respect to the moving workloads to the cloud. It improves how you actually deploy and provision or deprovision resources more dynamically. With this, you can also benefit on reduced data center footprint, those amortized facilities or colo or hosting agreements that you have in one place. So those are no longer required as well. Also, staffing productivity. These operations or DevOps types of concepts where your operation folks are morely focused on automating and automation deploying, and of course deprovisioning workloads are more dynamically than racking and stacking servers dealing with HVAC or heating and cooling issues. With that, organizations can certainly generate substantial cash flow or finances, reducing the support that their workloads as they have to move to the cloud environment. Now, here's a couple of great customer quotes from the different industry verticals specifically, and the impact that they had and what they have achieved in moving towards the cloud. One of the great example is the second one here with Maersk. They are looking for a high scalable solution that is flexible depending on the overall utilization. And they were able to achieve that, moving to the cloud versus their on premise data centers, which were architected for the worst case scenario of high utilization, while their workloads, as they were able to deploy to the cloud, became much more flexible and dynamic. Some of the other examples certainly step through the other core customers with their goals of either reducing the cash flow requirements to support their workloads, or even taking on new or additional services that would be cost prohibitive for customers to do on premise. The last customer quote focus on and in around machine learning services and being able to automate some of those processes. And that's a hard thing to achieve at the same time, both from a technical and financial perspective on premise, but much more easier to achieve based on the cloud target. As we discussed, we bucketed the benefits of cloud into two general areas. Technically, the technical consideration and core financial consideration. But before we dive too deeply into financial consideration, I think it's important for us to also consider how digital transformation of moving to the cloud will also have a parallel financial transformation. So this generally sets the benefits when you're making the shift towards the cloud and when you're having an underlying migration. There are financial considerations around how the cloud will impact your financial positioning, as well as, of course, the organization's accounting, the goals and processes. Which right now, things are shifting. You have dollars going from on-premise environments to cloud environments. And so thinking about how the cloud can impact migration is very critical. Now, in the cloud, there are different cost structures compared to on-prem. On-premises again has this fixed cost structure, and in the cloud, you have to think about the opportunities that we should unlock to value. How do you take advantage of some of those technical benefits? We talked about that, and use that to increase your productivity and to increase your economic value when you make that cloud transformation. So when we're thinking about data centers, we're not just exiting our data centers purely just to get out of your on-premise environment. We are exiting and reducing our data center footprint in a way that allows us to offload some of the lead times that were previously required when provisioning an on-premise environment. Let's try to unpack that statement. So, in an on premise environment, I have a mixture of different spend categories. Capital is going to sit in things like server spend, buildings, data center costs, power and cooling. And of course, we do have the headcounts or the folks that would maintain that are tied to either racking, stacking, and of course, racking and stacking the servers. With a cost structure that is typically spread across a fixed cost basis, let's say I've got 5 megawatts of capacity. Now, if I'm actually looking at the capacity I'm utilizing, I might only be using 3 of those megawatts. I have a data center space that is there because I know I may be growing. And so I need to have that ready for when the demand comes. But the reality is we're not spending for an entire environment, but using only a portion of it. If we look at the next layer below that server capacity, even a further exploitation, I am not using the servers 24/7 as the previous chart showed, but you are provisioning for peaks, you're provisioning for those maximum usage period. When you remove from on-premise to cloud, you're not only able to reduce the data, but of course the data center footprint. And that includes the excess capacity and lead time requirements to the cloud service provider as well. Right now, Microsoft is making sure the capacity is there for you to spin up and spin down as you need it. You no longer need to keep this capacity pre-provisioned as well. Now, um, when we look at this, when a company is migrating to Azure and the financial statements are not immediately changed, it is a transformation process. This transformation process highlights the steady state benefits of Azure and pulls together and the income statement and of course the CF importance for our customers as well. And in this view, we first show you how the PNL begins to decline as a customer or you move to Azure. Server depreciation costs and all of these reduce as a migration occurs, and of course we go from 100% on-prem to Azure. With that, I would like to present and invite everyone, especially for the students that are joining with us today. We do have free trials for our Azure for students, and I would just like to invite everyone to scan the QR code and check to see if you are eligible for an Azure for a free Azure account as well. And of course, if you would like to know more and dive into the technical details of cloud services, we do have our virtual training days that are free. So, and of course, if you do want to kick off your journey to being a cloud developer, you may visit aka.ms/FY22 MSPH events to see our full list of virtual training days. In right now, we would like to ensure that today's workforce or the future workforce, which is you guys, are well equipped for tomorrow's digital world. While we can't predict, of course, how the landscape will look in the future, it is very important that we try to educate ourselves and on the opportunities that the digital technologies and what possessing a digital skill set can offer in order to succeed in the new normal. So, with that, I present to you our free resources that would be able to help you kickstart your cloud journey as well. If you do have any questions, please feel free to drop them in our Q&A. Our team is more than happy to assist you. And again, thank you everyone and have a great day.
Okay, so thank you very much, Zildjian, for that very detailed and insightful presentation. I really hope that these students would be able to apply it to their future endeavors and hopefully upskill their programming skills in cloud computing. And make sure to get started with Microsoft Virtual Training Days, and you may connect with Zildjian Dames through his LinkedIn, www.linkedin.com/in/Zildjian Dames slash or so for more info about their opportunities at Microsoft. Okay, so as many people are saying or as Jody Santa Maria said, papunta pa lang tayo sa exciting part. And now we are moving forward with our Q&A session. Or okay. So we're now opening the floor for your questions and you can put it in the comment sections and we will address them right now. Okay, so let's just browse through our comment section first. And there's a lot of students here right now who joined us today for the session today. Okay, so all of these are from Bulacan State University, and a lot of them are really students lang. So, just wanted to add lang pala that this is the CICT week of the students from Bulacan State University. So there's a lot of students talaga who are willing to learn with different topics, which is the cloud computing and yung cryptocurrency for later on.
Love that, King. Perfect timing now for the fact that we do have programs, especially for the students. I just wanted to take this opportunity to plug in our Cloud Squad program, which actually Stack League is also taking part of. For those students who are actually very interested, or for those tech enthusiasts that would want to join the Cloud Squad journey, please feel free to jump in and join us. So just give me one sec to flash that. So we do have our Cloud Squad Discord. Please feel free to join us. There will be a lot of technical experts in here that would be talking about cloud or even other technological pathways that are in store for your future. So making it as an avenue just for everyone to check in and make sure that you are well prepared towards the future of work.
All right, thank you, Siljan, for those opportunities and for those materials that they can literally or definitely use to upskill in the field of programming, especially in cloud computing. So, students, as you can see in the screen, you may scan all of the QR codes, or you can join to their Discord to learn more about the free resources in one slide. Okay, so let's hover around again on our comment section. So, okay, so we have one question from Dustin, Charles, and Taryn. So I'm gonna put it in the start. You may check it in the start and see if this is something that we can discuss.
Sure, of course. Justin here has asked,
All right. So Justin, Charles,
do you
and
think cloud
Taryn.
computing?
Okay. Okay. So the
Yeah,
question
I
is:
think
do
we
you
have that.
strongly
So
think? Go ahead. Go ahead.
okay, so cool. Thank you for your question, Justin. In all honesty, with with the question that you have and also with the presentation, I would definitely say that cloud computing will definitely be the future as we try to in terms of sustainability, we're trying to reduce our carbon footprint in the world. As it has been a very huge topic, and of course, in terms of costing, it has been a well-proven method within the organization as it reduces cost between having your own data center and of course having a third party cloud service provider to manage the resources for you. There are a lot of factors that are playing into my mind right now, but I don't want to overwhelm you with all of these information. But if you want, we could just have a separate discussion on how you as a student or even you as an educator would be able to utilize and be a champion of cloud in the future. So feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well.
All right. So thank you, Siljan, for answering that question. And really, no, as Justin asked, kung bang si cloud computing will be the future. So it's really interesting that we are leaning towards to that time of the technology, no. So more on
Mm,
cloud na talaga siya. So
yes.
very timely then also that we are trying to preserve or we're trying to yung manage yung climate change or
Mm-hmm.
yung problem with the earth, no. And it's really nice to know that it's really one of the things that would be really helpful in terms of
Exactly.
preserving our mother earth. Okay,
Exactly,
so
King. If I may just add, this actually just occurred to me right now while I was reading Justin's question. Actually, Justin, it's not the future. Cloud won't be the future. Actually, the cloud is now. You can see it in the environment as we transition into the hybrid workplace. Everyone has been jumping into cloud solutions. So you're not aware of it. Zoom is also one. Teams is also one.
mm,
Every learning management platform, every learning management software that you guys are using is also one. So technically the cloud is already here. It's just a
Mm-mm.
matter of accelerating our journey towards a more futuristic approach and modern approach towards cloud solutions. So yeah.
Thank you for adding that one. It's really true that a lot of the software applications right now is using cloud as to storing data and other information, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a matter of really accelerating lang din talaga kung ano yung mangyayari in the near future. Kung the
Exactly.
cloud computing daw would be also part of the future of technology, and hopefully it is, because it's really, as you mentioned earlier, na it's really helpful in terms of preserving, or so para saan din pa naman yung pag-accelerate natin if we don't have a planet to live on. So okay, so we
Mm-hmm.
have a next question. I think
Yep.
we have a question again from Justin.
Of course.
Okay.
I'll be happy to take this on, Justin, as I mentioned also earlier. And let me jump back into that slide for a second here. Um, okay. So, with all of the cloud services that are available, we are more than committed to ensuring that your data is well preserved and is well being taken care of. Again, Microsoft has invested 1 billion worth of money in terms of security and hiring 3,500 professionals into the table, and just to make sure that we are working with cross organizations such as the Cyber Defense Operations Center. We do have the Digital Crimes Unit, cyber hunting teams. We do have the Malware Protection Center as well, and of course the Security Response Center. Each cloud service provider, and this does not exclude our competitors as well. We are all committed to ensuring that your data is well taken care of and it's not being used in any malicious terms. So yeah.
Okay, thank you for giving that assurance with regards to the privacy of every users of cloud. And as you mentioned, no, that there's a lot of technology used or embedded with the Microsoft Cloud that would really
Mm-hmm.
help or would really assure the data privacy or the data that they store in that cloud. So you don't have to worry, Justin, if ever that you try to, or you're using Microsoft as your storage. You don't have to worry about your data privacy, because they have a lot of they really invested to make sure that the security is on high level. So
Mm-hmm.
right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And there are governing bodies on top of it. So we do have global, we do have US, we do have industry. As to what I'm flashing as well right now. So I mentioned this also earlier. Azure has been one of the top cloud services provider that has been available out there to provide with the most compliance coverage in the market. So technically, you don't have to feel any worry with regards to the data that you are storing, or even with the processes that you're storing with your cloud services provider.
Alright, so it's really din talaga, parang some of the students talaga, or some of people is really wary when it comes to storing
Yes,
their privacy, and we do understand that one. But
exactly.
making sure that all of the data is stored in Microsoft is really safe, and parang meron siyang sinusunod na mga protocols with different governing agencies. So you really don't have to worry about your data. So it's really safe. So don't be afraid to store in your data, no, in cloud, or your mga processes in cloud. And with that one, I think it would be parang your contribution in helping saving the earth, since mentioned earlier na it really uses parang low energy, or low cost lang for for cloud storage.
Hmm.
Okay, so we
Exactly.
have a question from Hosh. As students, As students, what do we need to learn first in order to delve into this technology, or dive? I think this is dive into this technology. For example, programming languages.
Sure. Actually, for this one, there are since cloud services is a vast space. All you have to do is to build up on your foundations. Of course, I know for a fact that Students right now are starting it off with C, Java, PHP, .NET, and so on. So trust on your foundations with there because at the end of the day, cloud services caters to every platform as well. So build on top of your foundations, and of course, if you do want to get started with cloud and you want to delve deeper into it, again, we do have our virtual training days that would be an avenue for you to answer your queries, your questions, and of course to equip you with the digital skill set that you'll be needing as you face cloud services in the future. So yeah.
All right, thank you for that one also. Hosh, you really have to the students have to remember that really, if you wanted to dive into this technology, you really have to have a good foundation, and for in order for that to happen, you really have to take on different opportunities or different courses that would help you in upscaling in terms of cloud computing. And for the programming languages, you don't really have to worry about because cloud computing caters different programming languages, may
Exactly.
it be Python, C Sharp, Java, JavaScript. So you really have to focus more on your foundation rather than the programming languages that you're going to use.
Exactly.
Okay, so next question would be from Ibrahim C. Santiago. What can you advise to students who want to start their career in cloud computing in the future? And also, what adjustments should be made given that most of us are studying web development?
Cool. Actually, this was a question with our previous session. And one framework that actually comes to mind is always about think about growth mindset, and this applies to everyone, not only to the students, not on, also, but also to the professionals out there. It has been a repeated framework that has been helping our developers and of course our competitors' developers as well as we drive into a very ever changing environment. So always make sure. Again, it's going to sound like as if I'm a broken record out of this, but to equip yourselves with the digital skill sets that you'll be needing. Of course, open your minds to the other capabilities as well. There are a lot of functions that are waiting for developers. Right now, there are low code, no code solutions that are out there of wherein the developers are not even needed to code anymore. All that we have to do is just to publish. So just make sure that you do have the growth mindset. You keep that excitement to explore and of course equip yourselves with the fundam no sorry equip yourselves with digital skill sets that you'll be needing towards the workplace. And again, do not close your mind on the possibilities with cloud because right now it's a very with the way that the pace with developers, or not even just with the developers, but with the innovating companies such as Microsoft, Google, Apple, and so on, things are going fast. So we do have to keep up as well. So yeah, probably my 3 points.
Okay, thank you for that one, for giving that advice for all of the students watching right now. So as to answer Ibrahim's question, or just to summarize it, really have to be open minded when it comes to if you wanted to be part, or if you wanted to thrive in cloud computing, you really have to open your mind
Mm-hmm.
in terms of adding new skill or upskilling other skills, because you have to really develop different skills, no, aside from web development alone, because the technology is really accelerating very fast.
Mm-hmm.
So not just with
Exactly.
the blink of not specifically or technically in the blink of an eye, but it's really moving forward and very very fast. So you really have to make yourself adaptable to that situation. So okay, so I think we have another question. Okay, let me just see this one. Okay, okay, from Hosh again. So is Azure free po lahat or paid feature din po siya?
So actually, I'm just flashing my screen right now. So Azure is actually free for students. So take this opportunity, use it to your advantage. Build your account right now. and of course start exploring the cloud capabilities with Azure, because of course when you dive into the workplace, there will be a lot of requirements, and of course we want to make sure that you're well equipped. But technically, as a student, it's free. But of course, when you step into the corporate world and you start working, there will be paid services as well. So more of that you would be able to see on our Azure website. I'll type it on our chat here as well. But technically, for students, take this as an opportunity for you guys to learn. So yeah.
Right. So this is really a good opportunity for them. It's really a great news for the students of Bulacan State University
Mm-hmm.
because they can really take different. They can build cloud free with Azure. Uh, right now that they are students, you can just use your university or school email to sign up and renew each year. You're a student, so you may scan the QR code shown on the screen to start your journey with Azure. So take this chance right now. So habang students pa kayo, no, you have to start building talaga your fundamentals or your skills or knowledge here. So as they say nga, no, habang bata pa or habang ngayon pa lang mag-start na talaga ng ng pag-upskill ng mga programming skills.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's move forward. Do we have another questions pa from the audience? Okay. So guys, don't be shy to ask a question, no, because it's really a good place or it's really a good time to ask a question with regards to cloud computing because as mentioned by Zildjian earlier, it's really the now right now and ito
Mm-hmm.
yung usually ginagamit talaga nating lahat. So if ever that you are curious with one feature or one specific na feature that you wanted to discuss, you may type in your questions in the comment section and we will address them now. Okay, so let's browse again. So, ano sila, puro mga introduction.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, if there are any not any more questions, I think that would be the last question for our session for today. And really, if you wanted to connect with Siljan and be updated with different Microsoft opportunities and different Azure opportunities for the students, you may contact him directly at his LinkedIn, and you may also scan the QR code shown on the screen for free resources in one slide, and you can actually join their Discord to learn more about Microsoft Cloud Computing. Okay, so I think that's it. That would be it for our first session for today. And thank you again, Siljan, for imparting your valuable knowledge with these students. And I really hope that they will be able to take the opportunities given to them right now. And I really hope na they would thrive or they would be successful to whatever path that they're going to take. And I really hope this has been fruitful for them. All right, so
Thank you.
I think that's it. Thank you again, Seljan, for your knowledge.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All right, so I think we should not delay this any further, and we would like to introduce now our second speaker. So he identifies himself as a solver because he solves complex and interesting problems for a living. He has worked as a back end, front end, mobile, and QA automation engineer throughout his entire career. His interests include cryptocurrency, machine learning, AI, and the interconnectedness of different technologies. Everyone, let's give it up for Jed Aureus Gonzales. Good morning, Jed.
Thank you for that introduction, King. Before we begin, I want to ask one very important question to everyone. How much does a polar bear weigh? Anyone? Anyone? You can sound off in the comment section if you know the answer. Just enough to break the ice. Hi, My name is Jed Gonzales, and I've been mining cryptocurrency since 2012, trading since 2016, and been hodling coins for what feels like a lifetime. And I'm here to talk about the ABCs of cryptocurrency. I'm not sure about the level of familiarity that the audience has. Some of you may already be trading cryptos, some might even be already developing blockchain apps, but some might not be familiar with cryptocurrency at all. So, for everyone's benefit, I'll try to keep this discussion high level and not to get too technical. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll discuss the history, some concepts, challenges, and examples, kind of like a past, present, and future look at anything and everything crypto. And I advise everyone to write any questions that you may have as we go along, because we have a question and answer portion at the end of the session. Okay, so let's dive right in with A. What's it all about? Cryptocurrency. It comes from the Greek words cryptos, which means hidden or private, and kuros, which means running or to move quickly. Take note of those etymologies because as we move forward with our discussion, you'll notice some irony with how it's all implemented. But cryptocurrency, when you hear that word, what other words pop into your head? Bitcoin, money, blockchain, trading? It's because currency is there when that's why financial transactions or trading are commonly associated. But let me tell you right now, we're barely scratching the surface of the technology involved with it. Sure, the financial part is one major aspect of it, but it's not the only purpose. Bitcoin, though, because of its surging price, has been a buzzword for a number of years now. A lot of Bitcoin billionaires out there, a lot of self-made millionaires who rode the wave of these past couple of years. You can't have a discussion about cryptocurrencies without mentioning Bitcoin. They will be forever linked together. But was Bitcoin the first cryptocurrency? Let's rewind the clock a bit and take a look at what came before. So, in 1983, David Chaum, a cryptographer and computer scientist, invented eCash, which is an anonymous electronic currency. So, David Chaum is an important figure in the field because he's widely known as the godfather of cryptocurrency. But it wasn't until 1995 when he was able to implement eCash through his company DigiCash as a micropayment solution for banks. I don't want to get into too much detail about the implementation, but this is important because it effectively secured the identity of the users. So it's one of the tenets of cryptocurrency as it stands today. So it made the transactions untraceable, and it served somewhat like a proof of concept for modern cryptocurrencies. Unfortunately, it didn't gain a lot of traction, even if there was interest from banks like Credit Suisse, Deutsche Bank, and even Microsoft. They were supposed to implement that for Windows 95, but sadly, the deal fell through. There was only one bank that actually used the platform, Mark Twain Bank in St. Louis, Missouri. DigiCash eventually went bankrupt in 1998, so the concept was sadly too early. Same old story with a lot of breakthrough technologies that are currently existing today. Their predecessors arrived too early, either the infrastructure wasn't there or the user's mindset is not there yet. In 1998, Wei Dai, another important figure in the history of cryptocurrency, published the description of what he called B money. That's B dash money. This is important because a lot of the concepts used in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies were included in the paper that he had published. So concepts like proof of work, verification through collective ledger, workers being awarded for their effort, among other things. So basically, eCash served as a blueprint of what Bitcoin could be. B-Money served as the prototype, not only for Bitcoin, but for the whole concept of decentralized cryptocurrency residing on blockchains. 2009. This is a landmark year because Bitcoin was created in 2009 by Satoshi Nakamoto. I want to show you this next image because looking at this kind of feels like looking at the very first ever banknote, something that future generations will only get to read about in history books. So this is the Bitcoin Genesis block or block zero. The block reward for this was 50 Bitcoin. I want you to imagine that. Right now, one Bitcoin is equal to roughly about 40,000 USD. So at the time Bitcoin was created, one Bitcoin was worth almost next to nothing. It was only until early 2011 when Bitcoin would reach 1 is to 1 with the US dollar. 2 years. It took 2 years. It was so undervalued that in May 22, 2010, Laszlo Hanyeks bought two pizzas, Papa John's Supreme and Cheese Pizza, for 10,000 Bitcoin. 10,000 Bitcoin. This day would come to be known as Bitcoin Pizza Day and is widely accepted as the first physical purchase made with Bitcoin. At the time, 10,000 Bitcoin was worth roughly around 41 US dollars. But now, yeah, you do the math. I'll give you a moment to process that. So 2011 saw the invention of Litecoin and Namecoin. 2012 saw Peercoin, and the list goes on. I won't list them all down because there are currently almost 10,000 cryptocurrencies out there. So I gave an abbreviated history lesson not because I want to bore you with all of the details, but because I want you to take this moment to impart to you one important lesson. We've seen how long the concept of cryptocurrencies matured from 1983 to present, and even now it's still growing at a rapid pace. I wanted to highlight this to everyone, especially to those who will soon be starting work, those of you who are in the middle of doing your theses, or even the freshmen who are only starting their journey. Great ideas take time. So don't be discouraged if you fail or if your ideas don't get off the ground as quickly as you had hoped. If you're passionate about something and you feel like your idea is going to change the world or even just advance the field, stick with it. Learn from failures, but don't give up. Okay, so, sorry for going off topic a bit there. Let's move on to the next letter in our alphabet. You know it's coming. We've been talking about it for a while now. So it's time to dive a little deeper. Let's talk about B, blockchain. Blockchain. You thought I was going to talk about Bitcoin for a bit there, didn't you? Okay, so nothing against Bitcoin, especially since it started this whole thing, but it it would most definitely be the new gold standard a few years from now. For me personally, I do see Bitcoin more as a symbol now rather than actual currency we can use. Sure, it's one of the most, if not the most stable cryptocurrency out there, but the transaction fees are super high and the time to validate transactions take a long time now. So if you're on the go, that would be an optimal method for payment for you. I think of Bitcoin more as gold, really, with how it's treated now. You don't buy your groceries with gold, right? You don't you don't pay your bills or buy clothes using gold. You can keep it as a store of value, but you would use other cryptocurrencies for different utilities. Oh, and one last thing before we move on. Just like gold, there's only a finite supply of Bitcoin. So there would only be 21 million Bitcoins to be mined. Mathematically, by the year 2140, all Bitcoins would have been mined. No new Bitcoins would be created after. So, yeah, that's enough Bitcoin talk. Let's talk about blockchain. Well, what is this magical miracle technology that allowed for the proliferation of cryptocurrencies as we see today? So, there are many different implementations of blockchain. I'll try to describe it as general as I can. So basically, a blockchain is a distributed ledger that acts as a collection of records that are linked with each other. So if you're familiar with the concept of a linked list, the difference though is that while linked lists use pointers, blockchains make use of blocks or hash functions. We'll get to that in a bit. It can also be compared to a database since both are a collection of records. Although while databases support CRUD, create, read, update, delete, blockchains utilize only read and write operations. So databases keep records per row, while blockchains hold records in blocks. Also, databases are inherently centralized, while blockchains take a more decentralized approach. Although there are private blockchains out there that utilize some form of centralization, so, because users are given levels of permission by administrators. Public blockchains, though, are mostly decentralized, formed through a unified peer to peer network. Now, implementation may vary between blockchains based on their type, but their core structure remains the same. So, on a blockchain, transactions are recorded chronologically, forming an immutable chain. So, by immutable, I mean once something is created, its value cannot be changed. This makes the data strongly resistant to alteration. As we discussed earlier, each block is linked with each other. But how? So, each block contains several information: the data, timestamp, the block's hash, and the hash of the previous block. Again, depending on the type of blockchain and hashing algorithm used, there could be different information included in the block. We'll get to that later. So, first of all, the data. It depends on what blockchain the data blockchain requires. For example, in the Bitcoin blockchain, the data contains the transaction information like who sent the Bitcoin, who receives the Bitcoin, and how much Bitcoin was sent. But it can be any data really. It can be medical records, shipment information, supply chain, even election ballots. So medical records can have patient information. Your entire medical history can be accessed in any medical facility. Even though the data can be publicly viewed, it would be hashed or encrypted, so no one would be able to decipher it except for the people you give permission to, like your doctor or a nurse. Shipment information would allow you to see where your package is currently located in real time. If you've ever ordered anything online, you know it's a hassle to get an accurate view of where your package currently is. Having all of that information in a blockchain at least solves that issue. Companies like Walmart are already using blockchain technology for their supply chain to easily perform food traceability for their products. Working with IBM, they were able to reduce tracking pork in China and mangoes in Mexico from their source to their facility from 7 days to 2.2 seconds. So there's transparency in all of the stops that the products made. So let's say food was spoiled in their packing facility, they would easily be they would easily identify that so that they can take action. It's very timely now for us, but elections are a good use case for blockchains as well. Every vote cast would be added to the chain, and we could easily see the exact count as as we tally. Since we've discussed the blockchains are immutable, there would be no room for tampering. The timestamp proves that the transaction existed when the block was published, so you can get into its hash. Meanwhile, the hash acts like the block's primary key within the chain. So think of it as a fingerprint. The hash is unique to every block once it's created, and there can never be a similar one within the same chain. In the off chance that any content is changed within the block, let's say the data was modified or the timestamp was changed, then the hash is recalculated. Once the hash changes, it's no longer the same block. So going back to the comparison with databases, you can change any row's data without affecting its primary key, right? Which means it's still the same row, just with modified data. That's not the case with blocks. So the hash is a good indicator if there was any changes made to the block. As for the hash of the previous block, this is important because this is what links the block together. This is also one of the aspects that helps secure the immutability of the blockchain. Let's take this example. Say we have 3 blocks. Each subsequent block contains the hash of the previous block within them as well. So if you would notice, the first block doesn't have a previous hash. That means it's the first block in the chain. Or if you remember the slide earlier about the Genesis block, That is it. So let's say someone modified the second block's content. The block's hash would change. But then the third block doesn't have anything to point back to because it's still pointing to the previous hash. So when validation occurs, the algorithm is going to detect that a point of failure within the blockchain render the latest transaction, which is the modification of the second block, invalid. So I hope everyone's getting a clearer picture now of how immutability is enforced inherently by the structure. So that's not the only way it ensures the integrity of the data, though. I've mentioned earlier that blockchains are distributed ledgers. The way that it's implemented is through a peer-to-peer network. Essentially, each node contains an exact copy of the blockchain. Nodes act as validators, so each person there is a node, almost in the same vein of how redundancy is implemented for servers, like in the discussion for cloud computing earlier. So going back to that example earlier, if one node reports a change, but every other node in the network you know, didn't record that change, that one node who reported that change is rendered invalid. That is because decision in peer-to-peer networks require consensus. Again, though, different types of blockchains employ different consensus protocols. Since there is no central figure or leader, the way things are decided is by sort of majority vote. It all depends on how the blockchain achieves the consensus among nodes, validators, or witnesses. I was so tempted to use this as the letter C in our alphabet, but I decided to focus on something different instead. Let's take a look at another example to demonstrate how a distributed ledger would theoretically work. Let's take a group of people who are not friends, but are part of, let's say, a lending circle. Since they're not friends, they don't really trust each other because they don't know each other. So, to keep things honest, they keep a record of all the transactions that go on within the group. But is that enough? Let's see. In this scenario, A borrowed 20 from B. So B sends A 20. He also borrowed 50 from C. So C sends A 50. But C forgot he had bills to pay. So he borrowed 100 from D. Unfortunately, C never received anything. Little did anyone know, D only had 50. So the transaction where she sends C 100 would be invalid. How could we avoid this issue? One solution could be transparency of everyone's current balance. This way, they can prevent overspending. Oh, by the way, all of these transactions can be considered as the blocks of this ledger. One transaction equals to one block. Let's roll back the invalid scenario and take a look at another scenario. Let's say D borrowed 50 from A. So the earlier transaction would now be valid, right? Because D now has 100. So now if D sends C 100, it pushes through. She didn't overspend because she already had 100. Some time went by and now B comes to collect money A owes her. So if you remember, A owes her 20. Since A has 20, he can pay B. But A knows that C would be collecting soon as well. But now he has no money left to give. So he tries to cheat and write down that he already paid C the 50 he owes. So since this is a ledger that is shared by all, he can just write it and everyone wouldn't know. But you know, since A had directly written it on their ledger, there's no way for anyone else to verify that A didn't really make that transaction. This is where the distributed aspect plays into it. If everyone has their own copy of the ledger, it will be easier to validate that line 6 didn't really happen, therefore rendering the transaction invalid. One other key aspect that I haven't discussed is digital signatures. So remember when we discussed B-money earlier and how Bitcoin borrowed a lot of aspects from it? The cryptographic hashes and digital signatures are two of the most prevalent ones. So the way those transactions earlier were posted to the ledger, they had to have signatures of the sender as an additional authentication. So digital signatures are implemented cryptographically by making use of a public key and a private key combination. These are unique for every users and they are always intrinsically linked to one another. So there is no way that a private key is associated to multiple public keys and vice versa. These keys are often long and non-human readable strings such as this one. So don't stress about memorizing them because they're not meant to be memorized. The format of the keys depend on the cryptocurrency. So this is the public key of the Genesis address, the very first address Bitcoin was sent to. Public keys are often used as the wallet address. Essentially, it's your identity on the blockchain. Everyone can see public keys, and that's okay. Even if people know your public key, they won't have access to your account. Public keys are derived from private keys in many blockchains, but there are some that allow you to set your own public key. Private keys, however, are a different story. Private keys or secret keys, some nomenclature, prove your ownership of the address and all of the content that it holds. So think of it like a password, but unlike a password, if you lose your private key, you lose them forever. So since there is no centralized system that acts as an administrator, there's no forgot your password facility available. So nobody knows your private key except you. So just a reminder, you should never share your private key with anyone. And if you're required to enter a private key to a wallet or app, you better have 100% confidence with that service because this is the only way people get hacked in crypto. So why are public and private keys relevant to digital signatures? Remember my comparison with linked lists earlier, in that linked lists use pointers while blockchains make use of hash functions? These are important inputs that are passed to those hash functions, which are used to verify transactions. Let's take an earlier transaction as an example. Let's say A sends B a certain amount. So the way a digital signature is produced is by passing the message along with the private key of the sender to a signing function. So this function outputs a digital signature that is unique to its transaction. The message contains the data. In Bitcoin's case, it's the transaction information. But going back to that example earlier about different use cases, the message could also be health records or shipping information or whatever. So no matter what the data is, if it would be encrypted based on whatever cryptographic hash the blockchain uses, having the signature would allow it to be decrypted or verified. This is important for the security of the transaction because it ensures the data could only be read or received by the correct recipient. Um, so signatures are non-human readable as well. It's hashes. So they're most definitely hashes calculated from those inputs. So on the other end of the transaction, the verify information is ran using the message, signature, and public key as parameters. So as we discussed earlier, public keys are inherently associated with private keys. So the recipient doesn't need to know the private key because they can use the public key to decrypt or verify the signature is valid. So these functions output either true or false. This could either make or break transactions. Hackers can try to guess the private key based on the public key, but because of the sheer number of possible combinations, it would take thousands of years to crack. Different blockchains have different implementations of these functions. Some might accept different parameters, sorry. Like for Bitcoin, it also passes a nonce. or a number used once. But let's say A sends 100 to B multiple times consecutively. If the signing parameters are only the messages and the private key, those transactions would have similar signatures, right? So that's where a nonce comes in, so that the similar looking transactions would have different signatures. Before we move on, though, let's wrap up the blockchain talk. So blockchains can be proof of work like Bitcoin or Ethereum, which rewards miners whenever they validate the block. So let's say in this network, a new block is produced. All of the nodes race to validate the block. And there are several factors that influence this. That's why you'll see in news articles, some miners have this whole complicated rig setup. Some even have server farms dedicated to mining. That's because whoever validates the block first gets the reward. So as of now, the reward is 6.25 Bitcoin, but it's halved every 4 years. So after the 4 year cycle, it's going to be 3.125, at least for Bitcoin, that is. Every other blockchain has its own protocol. Proof of stake blockchains allows users to stake their coins, basically investing it back to gain more power within the network. So it's not as competitive as proof of work in terms of the machinery required, but now you'd have to have more capital. There's also delegated proof of stake, which votes witnesses to be representatives, sort of like how Congress should work. Now, that would rely more on reputation. You don't have to own a million of whatever crypto, but you'd have to be trusted enough by the community so that they can vote you in as a witness. Okay. So I hope you've been writing questions, and I haven't been able to see it yet, but at the end of it, at the end of this talk, during the question and answer portions, I'll be giving away some crypto to the first 10 people who have their questions read. So if you want to join in on the giveaway, please register for a wallet using these links. So you would need either WhatsApp or Telegram. Uh, just scan the QR code or go to alty.com. That's alty.com. By the end of it, you would need to have a FIO handle successfully registered to join. That's FIO. So there are instructions there when you sign up. You would need to include your FIO handle at the end of your question later so I can send you your prize. If you don't have a FIO handle, then sorry, no crypto. So if you already have a FIO enabled wallet though, that's fine too. This is just to demonstrate for everyone how easy it is now to get you started on cryptos. Just a few clicks and you're ready to start sending and receiving payments. So I do hope that even though you're busy registering, you would still listen attentively to the talk so that you can ask questions at the end. I'll give you 1 minute to scan the QR codes before we move on. Okay. I hope everyone is done. Let's move on. Now that we know blockchain and how it works, let's talk about the challenges it's facing and the challenges that it hopes to solve. First of which is subject complexity. As much as I tried to explain everything plainly, I'm pretty sure that a lot of the concepts and terms went above people's heads. And that's okay. It's no fault of yours. This is a very complex subject, and even though it was first conceptualized in 1983, a lot of new things are being formulated even as we speak. So we're living in very exciting times. Imagine what it was like when the internet was first introduced. No, oh wait, you don't have to imagine. We're living in a similar time now. So the cement is wet, so to speak. We're at the ground floor of groundbreaking technology that would shape how society would function in the future. Don't ever think that you were too late to the game just because you missed out on bullish Bitcoin waves. Unfortunately, the rate of adoption is higher than the simplification of the subject matter. So the lack of documentation and the intimidating instructions are turning people away. That's why I try to do my part and help educate people, get them on board, but it's an ongoing struggle. People who would otherwise have gone into cryptos opt to not pursue because it's too complicated, and hopefully one day we'll get to a point where it's just like using apps like Gcash. Moving on to the next issue. So one of the biggest criticisms of cryptocurrency is the illicit criminal activity. So since transactions are virtually untraceable, it's easy for criminals to use cryptocurrencies in the dark web. They use it to buy weapons, drugs, other illegal paraphernalia, and it would be easy to use cryptos for money laundering as well. The reported cases of money laundering alone exceeded $5.2 billion in Europe back in 2019. This is a point of contention for many in the crypto space because of the decentralized nature of cryptos. Anyone can use it without fear of getting banned or given sanctions. So, since everything is encrypted, the money can't be traced back to the people as well. I don't have any good decentralized solution for this currently. So, let's move on to the next one. Interoperability. Now, I mentioned that there are almost 10,000 cryptocurrencies existing today, and almost all of those operate on their own blockchain. Imagine if, for example, you walk into a coffee shop that accepts crypto. You've loaded up on your favorite crypto, you've ordered your food, and when you're ready to pay, you discover that the shop doesn't accept your crypto. It accepts other cryptos, but not the one that you have. That's a bummer, right? Since coins operate on different blockchains and different blockchains don't directly interface with each other, that's going to be a real problem. Either the cryptos cannibalize themselves or only the more prominent cryptos survive. So that extends beyond payments too. Like, say, cryptos that deal with file sharing. Users won't be able to send data to each other because the two blockchains don't communicate with each other. Fortunately, there are projects like FIO, sort of an ad, that focuses on acting as a cross chain communicator. So these projects are still in the early stages, but they aim to bridge the gap between different blockchains. In doing so, as a consumer, you wouldn't need to worry about which cryptos are accepted by the store. Hopefully, interoperability won't be much of a challenge soon. Environmental impact. I know this was mentioned earlier in the first talk as well, but this is directly tied into costs as well. Bitcoin and other proof of work cryptocurrencies require a large amount of energy to perform computations. All of that mining, all of those validations, all of the redundancies of the blockchain, they're going to incur costs. And it's all running 24/7 because the blockchain never sleeps. So just imagine the electricity bill that comes with it. The environmental impact is one of the main criticisms of cryptocurrencies, and it's not really going to go away. The only feasible solution for this right now is to use alternatives that are more eco-friendly, like proof of stake blockchains. So, as I mentioned earlier, proof of stakes doesn't use extensive computing power. But since Bitcoin doesn't seem to have any plans of moving away from proof of work, and since Bitcoin is most likely not going away, this will be an ongoing issue. Consequently, the issues that cryptocurrencies aim to solve looks like a direct mirror of the challenges that it's currently facing. So, what challenges does cryptocurrency aim to solve? First of which is environmental recovery. Even though cryptocurrencies consume a large amount of energy, the cost of Bitcoin mining is still outweighed by the costs of power used by financial institutions. Printing money requires a lot of power as well. Not to mention resources like paper. As we know, paper comes from trees. Around 15.3 billion trees were cut down in 2021. This means that an average of around 2,400 trees were cut down every minute. Granted, there are other reasons for the deforestation, but other than logging for paper, it's still a huge impact. Minting coins contribute to this as well. Not only from physical mining, the production of the coins leave a big carbon footprint as well. So cryptocurrencies that don't deal with those issues because it's all digital. There are no physical representation of the currency other than computers that we already have. So that's a point for cryptocurrencies. Next up is foreign exchange rate. So foreign exchange rate, there are currencies that these currencies that we use have border restrictions. Like we can't use dollars in London. We have to exchange them for pounds or euros. So there are fees involved when exchanging, and you're paying banks or brokers. I think this is a good juxtaposition to the interoperability problem discussed earlier. You would need to swap Ethereum for Cardano or other coins as well, but the fees are not as big. Also, the difference with foreign exchanges is that their fee is split up. Instead of paying banks or other centralized authorities, the fee is split by liquidity providers, proportional to their contribution to the liquidation reserves. So the fees normally isn't as large as foreign exchange fees, and you keep the coins flowing within the ecosystem. I don't want to get into too much details about slippage swaps, but basically liquidity providers vest or stake their own coins to help facilitate quicker and more cost-effective swaps. Same goes for remittance in the Philippines. Money sent home by overseas workers jumped by 12.7% in April 2021. I'm not sure how familiar you are with remittance, but sending money abroad incurs a lot of fees as well. Normally 5 to 7% of the total transactions. That's a lot. For cryptos, sending money to a person next to you has the same fees as sending money to someone on the opposite side of the globe. So there are no border restrictions. There are no discriminating between regions. As long as you have internet, you can send and receive cryptos. Even the fees are not that big. Alright, so theoretically, crypto shouldn't be affected by inflation because its price doesn't depend on the crypto markets. On the markets, the main stock market. Some people even speculated that cryptos could act as a safe haven to the rising costs. Unfortunately, these past few years, we'll see how it all unfolds because the price has been fluctuating. Let's wait until it stabilizes. Finally, and most importantly, financial freedom. Before the introduction of cryptocurrencies, people had no choice but to rely on banks to store their money. Arguably, one of the most influential factors contributing to the evolution of financial world is the people's desire to have undivided control over their own money. Banks and other financial institutions make a profit from storing and lending out your money, effectively limiting your access to it. Furthermore, international bank transfers are expensive and often take days to settle. So cryptocurrencies give you full control of your money. I mentioned earlier, not only you have access, not everyone has access but you to your wallet through your private key. So cryptos acts as a store of value, which gives you the capability to be your own bank. And that's huge. It doesn't seem like it now, but we've been used to centralized institutions. You'd be relieved when you're not part of the receiving end of a bank defaulting. Which brings me to the next letter of the alphabet. Let's talk about decentralization. So this is a concept that I've mentioned many times before during this discussion, but I think this is the most important aspect about cryptocurrencies. So I want to take this moment to emphasize why decentralization is important. And it's not just about financial freedom. Decentralization isn't really a new concept. Ancient tribes operated in a decentralized fashion before the advent of agriculture. But that's for a different discussion. Let's focus on how decentralization relates to cryptocurrencies. Moving from a centralized system to a decentralized one would take time and considerable effort. Not only is it slower to develop and harder to implement, the mindset of the users would need to be adjusted as well. We're also used and dependent on decentralized systems that we tend to ignore other alternatives. Um, Here are some examples to illustrate the difference between the two. So when you cash a check, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, it takes 2 to 5 business days to clear. So there's a centralized clearing process that involves a Federal Reserve or any centralized authority. So I'm not going to explain the clearing process anymore, but the downside here is that if the check bounces or doesn't get cleared, you get charge fees. They ask you to pay an amount. So they can close your account or suspend you if you have multiple infractions. That wouldn't happen in a decentralized setting. As I mentioned, you own your account and all of the contents it holds. So nobody else can get it from you without your permission. Now, that's the biggest difference you have to remember. Sticking with financial institutions, though, people who are unbanked, underbanked, or credit invisible people have a hard time of getting loans, credit cards, or microfinancing. The way credit scores are calculated in a centralized system is already very algorithmic, but it's only for the data points that they decide and have access to. Sometimes it can all be subjective. By employing blockchains and decentralization, entire financial histories can be taken into account to have a more accurate credit score. Currently, some crypto projects already use cryptocurrency as a collateral so that the users can take out loans without needing all of those background checks. Moving away from finance for a bit, centralized systems can be found in cloud services as well. Going back to the topic of ownership, whenever you post anything online, even if it's your post, you technically don't own it. In exchange for using their services, usually for free, they capture your data. So since they own your content, they can essentially do anything with it. They can reuse it, repurpose it, or remove it, whatever they want. It's all susceptible to censorship and at their own discretion too. I don't know about you, but that's pretty disturbing. Imagine if you put up a post, just an ordinary post, they can remove it or just delete it, suspend your account, whatever they want. They don't have to justify it to you. So, not only that, let's say, for example, a site or service experience an outage as well, like your cloud backup for photos or messages. If the data is gone, you'll just be gone. You won't have access to them anymore. Speaking of messages, since it's all located on their system, what's stopping them from looking at your private messages? Laws that prohibit it? It's in their system. So if they want to view them, nothing can stop them. That's scary. The services are closed source too, so you wouldn't have access to how their algorithms work. That's something that public keys and private keys can avoid. Encryption, from what I mentioned earlier, is a solution, a trustless solution. What I mean by that is you don't have to arbitrarily place your trust that your messages won't be read. It simply won't be because of how encryption is implemented. I mentioned about how we can't access sites when servers are down. That happens when it's all centralized. So there's no place the site can load from. Imagine downloading a file. If the servers where the file is hosted is down, you won't be able to access that file. But in a decentralized network, let's say even if 90% of the network went down, as long as you have access to at least one node that has a copy of the file, your download would still continue. Does this sound familiar? It should be, because that's how torrents are implemented. Don't be shy to admit that you've used it before. Extend the concept to website hosting. If at least one node is still functional, the website would continue to operate. So going back to blockchains, you wouldn't need to rely on just one website. Any number of services can access the same blockchain. Say, for example, we have a social media blockchain where all your social media is consolidated. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. In this scenario, if they read from one feed, even if Facebook is down, you can access them from Twitter, Instagram, whatever. It's still available. Your data is still available. So I hope that the difference between centralization and decentralization is clearer now, because we're moving on to examples. Since there are 10,000 cryptos out there, I won't be able to enumerate all of them. So I'll just highlight some interesting ones that um, from areas that are very active right now. So store of value. So these are basic payments: we send, receive, exchange for fiat or real money. So examples of this are Bitcoin, Luna, US Tether, Gemini, and DAI. There are also exchanges where you can buy crypto coins just like stocks. So there are coins that are used as utility tokens where you pay using them instead of paying fees. Uh, BNB for Binance, KCS for KuCoin, HT for Huobi, and FTX are used to pay the fees. So instead of fees being deducted from the coins that you've bought, you were able to pay the fees at a less cost. So mind you though, a lot of these exchanges are centralized in their implementation. So if you're going to trade, don't keep coins in exchanges that you don't own your private keys to. Remember the mantra we discussed earlier: if you don't own your private keys, you don't own your address. There are decentralized exchange out there. So here are some examples. Uniswap, PancakeSwap, EAVE. There are a lot of players in this space. And this has been one of the most active crypto projects these past couple of years. They're lumped together as DeFi because they provide many financial services without the need for a centralized authority. So swaps, loans, you can do it with these apps. Interoperability. So I mentioned this earlier: FIO, Polkadot, Cosmos. So these projects aim to bridge the gap between blockchains. Smart contracts is probably one of the most important features that cryptocurrencies enable. Basically, they build trustless systems that allow decentralized apps to operate. So in the future, you can have companies living in the blockchain. You don't have to have a CEO or whatever central figure. They can all be autonomous. So Ethereum, EOS, Algorand, Cardano, these are just some of the active projects currently. But smart contracts also allow for the existence of NFTs, or non-fungible tokens. So if you hear in the news today about images and drawings being sold for tens of thousands of dollars, this is it. It's the latest craze and it's just beginning. I do hope that the prices normalize for a bit though, because I feel like we're in an NFT bubble right now. But that's just me. NFTs allow you to tokenize objects, whether it be images, music, documents, anything digital. You can sell them online without the need for a centralized e-commerce site. That's why you can dictate the price. So there's no moderation involved. So I just wanted to highlight more of the projects that deal specifically with NFTs, which leads me to gaming. So I'm sure you've heard of the gaming craze now: Axie Infinity. There are others as well, like the Decentraland, Engine, Sandbox. So basically, the gaming tokens that are sold and heard in the news are NFTs as well. So you used to have in-game items in games, if you're familiar with it. But with NFTs, you own those items. You can trade them outside. You can gift them if you want. You can dictate the price. So these are just some of the hottest gaming projects out there, but there are a lot more. Also, mainstream games are getting in on the NFT action as well. Companies like Ubisoft are getting into the play to earn space as well. So there are important developments. They're enabling people who otherwise wouldn't have such earning power. So just by playing a game, you get monetary compensation. Where was this when we were kids, right? Even web browsers are getting in on the crypto game. This web browser that I'm currently streaming from is called Brave. So it's a privacy focused browser. It blocks ads, but it pays you to view ads that are sponsored. So you get paid in crypto as an exchange. So I've been using this for a few years now, and I've earned hundreds of dollars just by browsing. So I'm not promising you hundreds of dollars by using it, but at least you get compensated where otherwise you just get bothered by unwanted pop-ups. This is not an ad, by the way, but I highly encourage you to use Brave browser. For file storage, I've mentioned this earlier, but this allows you to basically host files. So without needing to host it in a centralized location. It's like redundancy on steroids. So Siacoin, Filecoin, Storage, and even BitTorrent are some of the most active projects currently. Yeah, you get compensated for torrenting. This is not me advocating for piracy, though. Torrents in its purest form are inherently uh, legal. They were created so that you can share files faster. Now, because there isn't a centralized authority to moderate, people are enabled to share whatever file they want. So that's how piracy got started. But if you remember the challenges discussed earlier about illegal activity, this is it. Also, blogging. Hive and Steam are some of the projects that exist today. I personally have used both. I've self published a fiction novel in both blockchains. And so you can earn when you post online, when you like or upvote posts. I'm not going to get into details of how, but the mechanics are quite fascinating. So the earnings that I got from these websites are the ones that I cycle through in exchanges whenever I trade cryptos. There are much more areas being developed, and I won't get to, but it's a whole world of crypto out there waiting to be explored. So, with all that being said, are cryptocurrencies a passing fad or the future of society? I guess it would remain to be seen. Right now, it's all the craze, but a decade from now, we might not even be thinking about them at all. From this discussion, I'm pretty sure that you know where I stand. But since I'm advocating decentralization and freedom of choice, I'm not going to dictate anything and let you decide for yourselves. So, where do we go from here? You can listen to however many talks, read thousands of articles, watch videos, but the only way to really get into cryptocurrencies is to try it for yourself. Whether you're a consumer or developer, investor, or block producer, you can contribute by just getting into it. If you're a developer, the great thing about crypto projects is that they're open source. You can sharpen your skills while contributing to the space. If you believe that cryptocurrencies are the future, then act as an advocate, help educate others, and advance the narrative. There are no small parts. As Lao Tzu said, a journey of 1,000 miles begin with a single step. As I say, download the Sweatcoin app so that you can earn while you're taking those steps. You can use the QR code flashed on the screen or use my referral link sweatcode.in/i/jedao down below when you register. That is all. Thank you for listening.
All right, so thank you very much, Jed, for that very interesting and knowledgeable presentation. Surely this topic is really valuable to all our participants, not just the students, but also to individuals who take interest with the current trend in investment, which is in cryptocurrency. Okay, so now I know that you guys are very much excited to ask questions. So to not delay any further, we are now opening the floor for questions. Okay, so let me just browse in here. Before we begin pala with the question po, no, there is a concern from Giovanni Provida. Okay, so I can't register in the Alti group. I'm inputting correct number, yet it is saying the wrong. It is saying the wrong number. So is there a way to fix this one?
Uh, I'm not sure because I actually just registered before as the first talk is ongoing, and to make sure that the system is working, I used Telegram to register. So if you guys have Telegram, you can just scan the QR code. I can flash the QR code again.
Okay, so students, you may scan the QR code shown on your screens, and it would be easier for you to join the Alti group.
So just to confirm though, this is not a like a group chat. This is like a chat bot. Alti is like a
Mhm.
chat bot.
Okay, so you really have to log in. I think you have to log into your Telegram account, and
Yeah.
then you have to scan the QR code for you to be able to access the alti.com the bot for this. Okay, so I think that's one person lang with the concern for the alti na na bot. Okay, so I think we can move forward na for the first question. So we have a question from Melo Cruz. So Sir Jed, I have a question. Before pala we proceed, no, make sure lang Melo Cruz that you have your Alti ready for the giveaway of the crypto, and I think that would be a starting point for you to invest in cryptocurrency. Okay, so let's proceed. Sir Jed Gonzales, I have a question. What are the disadvantages and negative risks or effects of cryptocurrency? So if anything that if you have anything else in mind pa aside from the presentation that you've mentioned earlier. So yan pa.
Okay, so like apart from like the criminal activity, which is kind of like the hottest topic in terms of the pushback with cryptocurrency, I guess the lack of documentation is one of the disadvantages. So some people get easily scammed uh, because people forget that the private keys should not be shared. So that's one disadvantage. If you lose your private key, as I mentioned earlier, you lose your account forever. There's no recovery account for that. So yeah, that's one of the major negative impacts that I can think of,
All right,
other
thank you,
than the
Jed. So
ones mentioned.
all right. So thank you, Jed, for that one. So it's really a responsibility also, no? As a user, you really have to be mindful of, syempre, your security key and never share it with anyone because you might get scammed. And really one risk that could be an effect for the cryptocurrency is the lack of documentation. So you really have to take double time or really parang make an effort in making sure that your account is secured or you don't share with anyone yung security key ng iyong investment. Okay, so let's have another question from Jerome Tayo. Okay, so is cryptocurrency taxable in the Philippines? If so, how? And if not, why not?
Okay, so Jerome, it's not taxable in the Philippines because there's no governing body that handles it. So tax involves a centralized authority. Since cryptos live on a decentralized platform, there's no one overseeing anything. So all of the nodes govern themselves. That's why we don't need to have any taxes. You can consider fees for the transfer fees as the tax, but that's about it.
Okay, so thank you. So right now we don't have any tax with the cryptocurrency, and I know that tax is really important in terms of the operations of the government in terms of providing the welfare of every citizens in that country. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, really have to be responsible when you have cryptocurrency investment. Or it's in your parang ano na, it's in your CSR or your social responsibility if you wanted to give back by
Yeah.
paying tax or kaya as mentioned earlier, your fees for transfer would be considered as tax naman din. So I think I hope that that's answered the questions of Jerome. So okay, we have another question from Prawn Stars. So I don't know if what's the real name of Prawn Stars, but he or she might have a question with regards to the session for today. So what are your thoughts about? I'm sorry, wait now. What are your thoughts about NFTs, and do you think they could be more relevant in the future?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Prawn Stars. I do think that NFTs could be relevant in the future. So right now, a lot of the trading with NFTs are in-game items for like, games and images. But in the future, all of the all of anything that can be digitized and tokenized will be. So let's say right now, NBA cards are being traded using NBA Top Shot. Um, books can be NFTs as well. So anything, even services in the future. Like if you have limited services, you're a freelancer, you have limited services, you can sell your services using NFTs. That will act like your service fee. I do feel like we are in an NFT bubble right now. I don't like seeing like an image of an ape selling for $75,000. Uh, Hopefully that normalizes pretty soon because that's how the bubble crash, internet bubble crash of 1990s happened because of that, the rising costs. So if that normalizes, then this would just be a normal thing, like images selling for their appropriate price, sort of like that. But yeah, I do feel that they are relevant in the future.
Okay, so thank you for sharing about that one. No? So right now, we are ano lang, parang it is very limited sa mga tao kung sino nakaka-appreciate ng NFTs. And it would be really relevant in the future since a lot of people naman are parang taking interest na to be part of that trend. Okay, so we have a question from Justin Charles and Tare. So, as cryptocurrency actually require real money, what do you think should we invest on in order to make it profitable?
All right, so for me, I mentioned earlier, my capital for cryptos is zero. I just invested my time with it. When I used to mine, I used a CPU miner, so I didn't buy complicated rigs. I just used like unused computing power whenever I use my computer. So my miner is not on 24/7. It's just when I'm using my computer. But when I started to invest, I used apps like Hive and Steam. I blogged and I interacted using comments. I earned from there. So the earnings I used from there is what I used to invest, and I just grew my money from there. To make it profitable, I don't really want to give like investment advice, but in order to make it profitable, you really have to do your own research in terms of what coins to buy because there are some, as I said, the market fluctuates, and it's pretty hard to get a bead on which coin would like suddenly blow up and cost $100 from $1. So there are some coins that are still doing that, but it's a long shot. If you have money to spare, you can. That's what I advise. I don't. If you have like 100,000 in your bank, don't use 100,000. You can use whatever money that you can spare. Like let's say 10%, 20% if you want. And then once you make a profit out of it, take it out. Take your initial investment out and cycle through your earnings. That's how you make a profit. So 100% profit already from there.
All right, so thank you for that very detailed, actually instruction on how you should be, or a good tip on how you should invest in cryptocurrency and how to make it more profitable. So, if you're a person who is parang planning not to spend your real money or your parang cash money, you can earn by mining with different applications that you can use online, and you really have to research lang din on what applications you should use. And if you have naman a money to spare, you can definitely invest not all of your money, but maybe a 10% of it, and really after it takes profit, you take that out, your initial capital, you take that out, and paikutin mo na kung ano yung mga yung nakita kung ano yung kinita mo sa ininvest mo. So I think I hope that is helpful for Justin and other students right here at the session. So, okay, we have a question from Giovanni Provida. So, just to make sure lang po, no, there are double questions kasi from the same person. So, I think it would count as one giveaway for you guys. Okay, so first question from Giovanni Provida. What advice can you give when starting at trading?
Alright, so I don't I try to stay away from giving investment advice, but just the same thing I said earlier about not investing more than you can spend. Like you don't you have to leave because it's a gamble. You have to leave a safety net for yourself. Like if you lose all of that, knock on wood, but if you lose all your investment in crypto, at least you would still be functioning normally. So it's just spare money. That's the number one advice that I give usually to people. And don't listen to like the hype, the gurus out there, the self-proclaimed gurus out there. Do your own research. Once you see that a certain coin is stable, has a good project, has a good team behind it, those are usually the coins that are good to invest in. And especially now with utility tokens, for me, whenever I invest in coins that and in coins and projects that I personally use. Like I believe in the advocacy as well. Like for example, I don't want to give a coin, but if you're interested in gaming or interested in like sports, there are utility tokens dedicated to them. And if you find a coin that you're just like in stocks, if you find a coin that you have strong inclination towards, then you should invest there. Don't just buy into the hype.
Okay, so okay, thank you for that one, and thank you for that advice. So, Jed is trying to avoid investment advices because it's really ano it differs talaga in every person. It differs in their needs or it differs yung interest nila in joining the cryptocurrency, and really have to be mindful in terms of listening to other people because it's your money and it's your investment, and you really have to be careful on what you spend and what type of investment you should go for. So okay, so we have another question from Jerome A Tayaw. So this was I think this was a part of it was mentioned earlier, but can cryptocurrency be hacked, stolen, or scammed? How safe is cryptocurrency?
Yeah, it's very safe. With, because cryptography is involved. I'm not sure if you guys have already taken subjects in cryptography, but it can't be like if you take one digit away from a hash, it's already a different hash. It's very safe. The only way to get hacked in cryptos is if you lose your private key. And you lose your private key by giving it directly to people. Like if you input it or if you write it somewhere and people can copy, that's how you lose. But if for example you publish your public key in your social media, that's okay. You can't be hacked from there. And there are no passwords, there are no recovery emails, stuff like that. So yeah, that's the only way you get hacked.
Okay, so in general, cryptocurrency is really safe because the platform itself is very safe, but be really responsible when it comes to your private key because once it is parang napunta siya sa ibang person, you would really have a hard time or you won't have a parang you won't be able to get it na. So
Yeah,
you really have to be careful in sharing or writing your key or your private key in any
yeah.
medium. So may it be online, your notes, your notebooks, or siguro
And
kahit sa mga
since there's
friends, you really have
no
to be you be
since there's no
mindful.
central authority to sorry king to interrupt
Sure,
when
sure, no
there's no
problem.
central authority to who are you going to complain to, right? You can't say that, oh, I lost my private key. There's no person administrating bitcoin. So yeah.
So yeah, you really have to be responsible with all of your actions, and Since you enter this one, you really have you should do your research, and you have to keep it to yourself if you want your investments to be safe. So yeah. Okay, so a question from Joshua James. How many questions have we catered na from parang personal lang? Let me count lang. We have one, two, three,
You can just
four,
send in
five.
your handles when you register for the ones that have been read. I can transfer it later.
Alright, sige. Alright na ba? How many people are there on the LP? Okay, so while waiting, we can proceed naman with the question from Joshua James S. Obile. What trading application do you recommend to us?
Okay. So for centralized trading, I mostly use Binance nowadays. The first trading application I used was Bittrex, but there have been many outages. So since it's a centralized site, uh, I'm dependent on the site availability. So Binance, there's a reason why Binance is the number one trading platform right now. It's very easy to use, very beginner friendly. So if you're a beginner, I advise you to use Binance. But in terms of if you want to use the centralized exchanges, you can use Uniswap and PancakeSwap. You'd have to have a wallet enabled for your own wallet for PancakeSwap and Uniswap. But for Binance, you don't have to have your wallet yet.
Okay, so if you're just starting to invest with the cryptocurrency, you may start using Binance, the centralized platform for cryptocurrency. So that's one recommended platform that you can use as a beginner. Okay, so have we had a question from Giovanni? Okay, we have a question from Jam, Cyrene F. Manahan. What should I look for before buying or investing in cryptocurrency? Siguro ano siya, parang starting tip lang, not really kung ano yung kailangan nilang bilhin.
Yeah, additional for the one already discussed earlier about um, investing in projects that you believe in. You should also do your research about the team itself. Like if the team has board of advisors that are very reputable in the community, like they've already launched a lot of successful crypto projects, those are usually the good ones. uh, don't fall for, like, there are some coins that uh, spike up the price, but they're just manufactured. Sometimes they can manufacture it by buying all of their coins by bulk. Don't buy into that. Look at the trading volume. Look at the trading volume in the platforms that you're using. And if you have a healthy trading volume for a coin, that's usually a good coin to invest in because you can buy and sell without needing to wait for the clearing for a long time.
Okay, so thank you for that advice, and I really hope, Jam, you would be able to take that one into consideration when you try to invest in cryptocurrency. Okay, so another question from Angela Clemente. So how can we utilize the Brave browser? Does it have similar function to Google Chrome browser?
Yes. Simple answer is yes. Brave browser started out using offshoot of Firefox, but has since migrated to Google Chrome. So if you install Brave browser, you're basically just using Chrome as well. It's using the Chromium OS open source. So it'll look like Chrome. All of the Chrome extensions will work on Brave browser as well. Just have the additional built-in ad blocker and the Brave rewards, which reward you for. So I'm not able to share my screen, but the Brave rewards basically, whenever you open a new tab, the new tab has the ad, the sponsored ad. So you already get paid basic attention token for that, and it's really a growing coin now. So you don't have to invest anything on that. It's you can use that as an investment as well. Like if you want to exchange back to other cryptocurrencies so that you can grow your fund.
Okay, so if you have a lot of time or if you have a lot of free time that can cater watching different ads whenever you browse on the internet, it's a good browser for you. And while you are watching different ads or promotions, you would be able to make a profit from it. And sooner or later, you can invest those profit that you earn from Brave browser. Okay, so we have next question from Yeli Aldodin. Do you think mentioning crypto should always be accompanied with its own disadvantage or explanation on how it really works, not just the code itself?
For sure, for sure. I always think that whenever you're mentioning something this big, you'd have to include both the advantages and disadvantages because if you're only mentioning the advantages, it'll look too good to be true. It'll look like a scam for people. So mentioning the disadvantages about um, like the rising transaction fees for Bitcoin, for example, that'll be good to get people, you know, an even keel in terms of deciding whether they want to pursue or not. I really do feel like you have to mention the disadvantage as well.
Okay, so just selling goods. People are really accustomed that we should be telling the good things of our product or something that we wanted others to join. But we really have to be mindful na, syempre, if it's good to be true, you can't just get a lot of people to join you if hindi nila alam yung mga cons in joining. So, yun, you really have to be honest in terms of the disadvantages of cryptocurrency para lang din nawi-weigh in ng mga tao kung paano sila mag-invest for the cryptocurrency. Okay, so we have last two questions. So first question is from Patrick Paul Layub. What are your thoughts about the SLP? So I think this is about Axie Infinity.
Sorry, I actually don't use Axie. Um, I think I think it's a very interesting proof of concept in terms of NFTs. It's early stages, and it's good that it gets people on board with cryptos, like people who otherwise would not have been using crypto enjoy. And you can trade SLP out for other coins that cost more, right? So you can start your investment journey from playing. That will be an interesting story to tell your grandkids that you bought your house because of games. So it's good. I think that it's good for uh, starting your journey. I just personally don't use it myself.
Okay, so thank you so much for your honesty with regards to the usage of SLP. But anyway, it's really also a good platform for you to start or for you to invest in when you are really interested in earning and playing at the same time. So with this, you're not just playing, you're investing your effort and time, and while you are making a profit out of it. So last question is from Russell Garcia. So what are the worst thing that can happen when cryptocurrency oh, can happen in cryptocurrency and how can we avoid it?
Okay. Yeah. Worst thing. Still, sorry if I'm sounding like a broken record. You lose your private keys. That's the worst nightmare that because I had I've lost a private key before, and it really hurts. It really hurts. It's a good thing because I didn't really have capital my own. I didn't invest my own money on that. That's why it doesn't sting that much. But for people who have invested real money, that'll be like a nightmare. Like you can't recover from that. You can recover that money again unless you invest again and you make up the profits. But yeah, and avoiding it. Usually, what people print their QR codes. So whenever you have a wallet address, especially the long ones, you they print out the private keys in QR codes so that they would have a physical copy. They can just scan it whenever they forget or whatever. But like projects like TO or other interoperability projects, you can have your public key like in a convention that you can easily read. Like for when I'm going to send the giveaway, my FIO handle is going to be Jedao at Alti. So that's the only thing I have to remember. That's the only thing I have to tell people. And I don't have to memorize all of the long stuff. But yeah, to avoid it, you can back up, secure your backup, and then have a physical wallet. Oh, sorry. Some others have use like USB hardware wallets as well. I don't, but I know a lot of people buy Trezor, and it's basically a USB dongle which you can store your coins. It's basically a wallet, hardware wallet. Um, I don't use it because I tend to lose my physical stuff, and if I lose that, it'll be just as painful as losing my private key. Yeah,
Okay, so thank you for reminding again everyone that it's really important to really have to be responsible when taking care of your what do you call this, your private key, because that would be the worst nightmare that you could ever face. Imagine if you really invested a lot of money from that one and a lot of your efforts from that one, and suddenly you lost it or somebody got it from you. You really have to be mindful on where you put it, or where you write your code or your link or your key to it. So make sure that if you have a backup, secure that backup,
yeah,
and make sure that the main point is really have to be responsible in terms of keeping your private key. So all right, so I think that would be the end for our Q&A session and for our second session of the day. So thank you again, Jed, for sharing the most detailed and interesting presentation about cryptocurrency. And a lot of students are really interested in terms of investing for the cryptocurrency, because that would be also helpful in their online classes and their parang future endeavors, because who doesn't want a spare money, diba,
yeah.
to shoulder mga different emergencies and other things that you wanted to buy in the future. So I think that's it lang for today. And just wanted to ask lang, how are we supposed to, ano pala, how are we supposed to um give out yung sa giveaway for this one? Is
Or
it registered in their Altina? And then
if
directly
they
you can.
can if they can just comment out their FIO handles in the YouTube, I can see it later. Also, you can for anyone who wants to connect on LinkedIn, you can find me on LinkedIn as well. Just search my name, Aureus Gonzales. Just include the introductory note that you knew me from StackLeague. So I don't normally just add. Also, sorry, I wanted to add again this QR code for people who want to start. Like they were asking about they were asking about how they start with little capital. You can use this Sweatcoin app. It's free. You can scan this QR code. You can use Android or uh, iOS, and then it's just basically a pedometer, and you get paid Sweatcoin for you taking steps, literally taking actual steps. So yeah,
All right. So thank you so much for sharing that one. So if you wanted to make a profit from being active when
yeah,
running, walking, or even when you're in the mall, you can use this one, and you just have to scan the QR code and start your journey with sweat coins. All right. So I think that's it for our second session. Thank you again, Jed, for um, providing a valuable knowledge that would be helpful for all of the students, and aside from that one, for all of the professionals right now here in the session for today.
thank you
Okay,
all.
thank you so much. All right, so before we end our session, these are some of the announcements, upcoming Stack League events. So StackLeague will be having Coding Chiefs Career Session Roadmap to Senior Programmer on April 28th, Thursday at 6 p.m. We also have the DICT. Since StackLeague is one of the initiatives of StackTrek, we are sharing the opportunity with you. The Department of Information and Communications Technology is co-hosting with StackTrek an initiative called Code Your Future, jumpstarting your tech career on April 29, Friday at 10 a.m. We also have um, StackLeague Recruit Day Tech Session. So it's about functional programming with Java on May 4, Wednesday at 6 p.m. And lastly, we have with StackLeague UXPH Tech Session, the web accessibility done right, common design gaps, and how to fix them on May 25, Wednesday at 6 p.m. There are plenty of opportunities and events for you to learn in StackLeague, so you can visit fb.com/StackLeague/events for the registration details and get the latest updates. Okay. So to help StackLeague team improve the session for you, answer these 5-minute questions from the StackLeague session feedback, or you can scan the QR code flash on your screen. So let me just think. We will put it in the comment section of our Facebook to get feedbacks from the session for today. Okay. So let me just show it in the screen. So you can copy it or you can screenshot your screen right now. It's bit.ly/StackLeague sessions feedback. All right. So moving forward, we have the StackLeague ambassador for April is now accepting actually we're still accepting entries for April. So earn your ambassador points now. Visit bit.ly/StackLeague Ambassador 2022 or as shown on your screens. Also, make sure that to earn points to unlock the challenger levels and receive the prizes. Okay, so I think that's all for the announcements. Thank you again. On behalf of StackLeague team, I would like to thank everybody for joining us the StackLeague University Series Bulacan State University Edition. If you don't have a StackLeague account yet, make sure to sign up now at stackleague.com and of course, invite your friends, family who you think should be a part of the league. See you guys at the next StackLeague event. This has been your host, King. Happy lunch, everyone, and have a productive week ahead.